Welcome to the CFB Dynasty podcast with hosts Matt Knowles, Brian McElfresh, and Doug Gravely.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there in CFB Dynasty College Fantasy Football Chat? It's Thanksgiving week. It's also championship week. Today we're going to talk about things we're thankful for. But you know what else we're going to talk about? You could be in the part of a season where you might need a reboot. You might need to your season fell apart, kind of like this podcast stream did a couple of times. And you might need a little bit of a reboot so you can start thinking about next year. Doug, how are you feeling as you are preparing for the 2024 season?
Man, I feel pretty good. I've been able to, start planning for my 2024. I don't know, 3 weeks ago? Nah, man, it's been fun watching everybody battle. I love what we do in our league, how we battle for picks, too, at the end of the year because it kind of keeps people engaged. So, man, it's been fun. And already the discussions in this league starting for, like, trades and all that. I'm like, dude, this is great. This is what I cannot – so I love the football season. But, man, the offseason can be so fun. With trades and everything. It as long as it's engaged this time of year, can be so much fun. Watch people go back and forth.
That is the best part. I do, we would always open our 2024 calendar year or whatever in signing day or on signing day, which was a bigger event, second signing day back when our league started, way bigger event. Yeah, now it's really an afterthought. So it's going to be a lot of fun. People are ready to make trades in our league now. But yeah, we don't open up the next year picks and all that stuff. This has been like a point that's been debated in our league for a while. Normally it would be, sometimes we would do it on signing day. Sometimes we would do it other points of the year. I don't remember where we ended on the calendar season discussion.
We ended up with it being now on the Monday after the NFL draft is where you can start. Well, I think we can start making some trades the Monday after signing day, but where you can start trading next year's draft picks, like for next year 2025 would be the Monday after the NFL draft. So I think it's after the second signing day is when trades are opened back up, or it was signing day or whatever the Super Bowl was, whichever one was later. Since the Super Bowl keeps getting moved back and back and back, it's the Monday after whichever one of those, which is later.
Yeah, so that's always exciting. It's definitely a year-round league from that point of view. So, all right, cool. Well, man, I'm excited for the games this weekend. Florida State, obviously, a ton on the line for the Gators, and battle of the backup quarterbacks. That's going to be a fun one. But yeah, what do you have going on this weekend, Matt?
So I've got the seventh year in a row I'll be at Bearded Browncoat Comics and Games doing their Black Friday show. So I have a comic show that actually starts at midnight tomorrow night. So that's going to be crazy. I made sure I told them I'm only going to be there till 2:00 on Friday so I can get out, watch the Dolphins play Black Friday football, then watch NC State UNC on Saturday, as well as some other great college games. But that's what I got going on. Doug, what about you?
Oh, man, I don't know. It just depends how much of a coma I'm in for eating so much food tomorrow. No, I'd love to get out and play some golf this weekend. Weather's supposed to be super nice here. And then, man, just enjoying some family time. And I'm looking forward to the Ohio State-Michigan game for sure. A lot online that game. And then, like BMX said, the Florida State game. One team has playoff implications. The other one has bowl. So, and it's a battle of the backups, and it's going to be fun. So
how do you guys feel as Florida fans? Do you feel like the game this week has been tempered down because of that horrific injury to Jordan Travis? Are you like, dude, it's Florida State. They could bust out a bunch of high schoolers out there. We still want to go wreck them.
Yeah, it's Florida State. It's senior night, all that stuff. It's certainly different. I grew up in the 90s watching the games when it was like, this was a top 5 matchup some of the times. Last game of the season. BCS on the line, that kind of stuff. So it's a little different now. In the last decade or so, as Florida and Florida State have had their ups and downs, and more downs than ups for both programs. So this year, though, like Doug said, it's Florida Gators need momentum in recruiting and all that stuff. Bowl practice will be massive for all of those that young squad. 30% of the snaps on defense this year have been true freshmen for Florida. So that's going to be a huge advantage for them next year and the year after that, as their youth has still junior, senior level type of experience on the field. So that'll be great for them in the future. And Florida State, they've got everything on the line. They're still undefeated. So that's going to be a big one there. But
I do think, as not being a Florida State fan, I do think that they kind of got screwed in the college football playoff poll this week because their quarterback gets hurt. Because their quarterback gets hurt, they drop out of the top 4. I'm like, that seems like, a double whammy that's just not cool. I'm not a fan of that at all.
The first thing I remember, do you remember Kenyon Martin? I forget what school he went to. Big time college basketball player.
Yes.
He got hurt right before the tournament, and they were like a clear number 1 seed, and then they bumped him down. The committee did.
I absolutely remember that. It was ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. The same with Florida State. There's 5 undefeated teams, though. If they're undefeated, they're getting it. Period.
Yeah, I think a lot of that had to do, honestly, maybe not as much to the quarterback play, but I mean, Washington has beat some better teams as of late than Florida State has.
That's valid.
So they played Utah when Utah was ranked. They beat them. They played Oregon State. They just beat them. So I don't know if it's as much the quarterback situation as it is they've just played 2 ranked teams in a row and beat them. And Florida State was down 13-0 with their starting quarterback against a high school team.
And true. I think the stars are coming out for Washington too. I mean, I know this may be a hot take, but because Marvin Harrison Jr. is great, but I think Roma Dunze is the best wide receiver in college football. The dude is just such a beast. He's so strong. I can't wait to see him playing on Sundays. He is such a beast.
Yeah. It's like you said. I think if Florida State wins this week, they beat Louisville. They're in no matter what. So it is what it is as of right now. I mean, there's still so much to play for these teams. And you would have to think that if Washington wins out, it's going to be, potentially a 1-loss SEC team if Georgia loses to Alabama, and then the other teams that are undefeated, I would think, have to fill out the playoffs. So
I love it. Every year I want to see chaos when it comes to the 4-team playoff. That's because if you guys have watched this podcast for the last couple of years, you know how much I've advocated for a larger playoff and how much BMAC hates it, because BMAC is stuck in 1976 and he wants bowls to be what decides it, and just the polls and the voters. And that's what he wants. He wants the Cotton Bowl in 1976, Oklahoma and Nebraska to be what decides the college football championship. I want there to be a playoff, so I'm glad next year we're going to experience something when it comes to a playoff.
No, I'm out on all that stuff, but I do like I like the 4-team playoff. I think it's really good, and I think so here's where I have an issue with it. We have mini playoffs games throughout the season that are going to be diminished. You think about how much you want to watch Ohio State, Michigan this week, and you know why, because it's do or die. This is a playoff game. You're just not going to get them in the regular season. Like, you get to this game next year, and you realize both teams are already in the playoff. It's just for seeding. And then you also know that you might see this game 3 times before the season is out. If both teams are great, where it's like they're going to play in the last week of the regular season. They'll play in the conference championship game because next year the divisions don't matter in the Big Ten. And then they'll probably meet up again in the playoff. Like, you'll know that this game that's coming up of 2 undefeated rivals is going to be meaningless. And that's why I hate it. You're going to take that away and push it to the playoff.
I don't know if it's meaningless, but I do think, look at last year. Last year, TCU gets a big win in the semis. and then they get absolutely obliterated in probably one of the worst college football championship games we've ever seen. If you have a playoff, maybe TCU gets exposed before the national championship game, and we get two teams that would actually have had a better game at that point. I'm not saying it would have happened, but I think you have a little bit better chance to weed out some of the pretenders before it happens on the national stage like that.
It's unfortunate last year because I think the championship game was actually the game that was played before with Georgia and Ohio State. So
yeah, and you get
it's just unfortunate with the seeding and stuff. And I think you're always going to have that no matter what. But yeah, it's rough with that type of stuff, especially being a former athlete. You never know because based off seeding and schedules and stuff, the championship game could be the semifinal game. It just sucks. So
well, and I can understand too, BMAC, you come from you're a lifelong SEC fan, and SEC has always been the power conference. And you're like, dude, let's get the power teams in there. I'm the opposite. I always love seeing the Cinderellas, whether it's Boise State going in and beating, Oklahoma or whatever it is. I love there being a chance that the underdog has a chance to have an unbelievable run. Look at, Florida Atlantic last year in college basketball going to the Final Four. Who would have thought that was going to happen? Nobody would have thought that before the season started, or even when the postseason started, if they didn't have that chance. Just giving them a chance. The probably one out of every 20 years that Cinderella might have a chance to do something. But you know what, though? Doesn't that make it great when you're like Tulane could be in the national championship and maybe get a win where it would never happen ever in the current system?
It definitely won't happen because, it's not college basketball. Like the differences between your, let's take a look. Let's take a look at, Michigan's schedule before they played Penn State. How many teams in the SEC would be undefeated on that schedule? And I think absolutely almost a majority of them would be undefeated on that schedule. Up until Penn State, obviously, and Ohio State this week. But still, I think it's hard to measure. But then you look at recruiting, you look at Tulane's O-line versus, let's say, Alabama's D-line as they get matchup in the playoffs. It's not basketball where one player can get hot and affect the game way more than in a football game. And so I don't think that'll ever happen in terms of a Cinderella story going all the way through the playoffs, but maybe they'll get one game just like they did in the bowl game, like you mentioned.
And a Cinderella could be the fifth place team in the SEC that never would have had a chance to make it before, but now they go in as the 11 seed into the playoffs. Maybe Tennessee has a chance at a run. Maybe Vanderbilt has a chance at a run. I say that in jest, but you never know. Maybe Florida, who has had a few rough years as of late, maybe they find a way to sneak in at 7-5 one year as the 11 seed because they played a gauntlet of a schedule in the SEC. You never know. That
part is good. That part is good for sure. But I love the whole season, and I love the urgency that I feel when I go into the swamp and it's Florida, Tennessee in week 3. And I know at that point, someone's going to come out of that game second in the SEC East. And that matters a lot, a lot. So it's going to matter a lot less going forward, which is going to suck. And we'll see how it impacts regular season attendance. We'll see how it impacts the intensity and all that stuff, which I think it has to have a negative impact. And we could go into a lesson in economy there, but hey, let's go, or economics. We can go real quick over there to the news and notes if you're ready, Matt. I know you got one that you want to lead us off with, but I'll play the drop and we'll get to it.
Let's do it.
News and notes around college football.
All right, so I'll just take this top one. In news that should be a surprise to absolutely no one that has seen Colorado play this year, Shedeur Sanders is, quote, unquote, taking it day by day and not feeling well right now. If you've watched Colorado, you have to be horrified at how bad their offensive line is. Back in the day, when the Houston Texans came in and they had David Carr and they would have commercials where it'd just be one offensive lineman and David Carr and then the defensive line coming in and just crushing him. That was a better offensive line than what Colorado's putting on the field right now. And I feel bad for Shedeur because Shedeur got injured twice before he got knocked out of the game 20 minutes into the game last week. 20 minutes in, and that has happened every week since like week 4. So yeah, Shedeur, if I'm Dion, I probably don't play him this week. Let somebody else go in there and get the crap knocked out of him. You know when Colorado ended the game with a quarterback number 23 in the game who inexplicably was able to complete a pass to himself and throw an interception on the same single play. Tell me how that happens, Doug. Completed a pass to himself and threw an interception on the same play last week. You know things are going downhill for Colorado. I've been a Shedeur Sanders supporter all year. I even played him last week, much to my chagrin, knocked me out of the college fantasy semis. But I feel for the kid. He is a great athlete, but my goodness, that offensive line is horrible.
We tried on the show to warn you. We tried to get you to play Frank Harris.
It is only a 70-point difference. What can I say? Frank Harris with 48.9 points in the first half. I was sick to my stomach. But you know what? That's why we all got to pay attention to those CFB Dynasty rankings. Shame on me.
No, I mean, I get it. When you live with a guy who gets you all the way there to the semifinal, it's hard to bench him. And that comes down to it. Like, we provide the rankings as a tool for everyone to use, but it really comes down to gut. Same with like going into the draft. Like, I wanted, because I felt good about him. There's no real rhyme or reason. I felt really good about Eugene Wilson. And I was like, all right, I got to have him. And then I, for whatever reason, just decided to go with some other players that I had ranked more highly, and then someone else snagged him, and he's a baller. For he would have been better than whoever I drafted in the 3rd round, and yet he's also got 2 more years left in our league, so I get to watch him ball out on someone else's team. So it is a part of data plus your gut plus like whatever makes you happy. You got to have players that are like my guys, like guys that I got to have.
Well, and I agree. That's one of the things that I've said on the show over the season is part of what needs to come into that decision is who are you going to be able to live with if you start them compared to who you put on the bench. If I would have switched those guys last week and put Frank Harris in and put Shedeur on the bench, yes, I'd be in the championship right now. But if roles were reversed and Frank Harris has an off game and Shedeur blows up on my bench and I lose that game, I would have been a much more difficult pill to swallow because I would have felt like I overthought my fantasy decision. So that should come into it as well, along with the analytics. Who are you going to be able to live with losing with as opposed to having that person be on the bench? So yeah, it sucked last week, but it is what it is.
Yep. All right. Let's push it along through. Doug, I'll give you the music. You can knock out the rest.
Let's hit it. So, along with the Shedeur Sanders news, we got Drew Aller, quarterback from Penn State. He's probable to play. Then Isaiah Ifanse, running back for Cal, is doubtful. So if you have Ott on your championship lineup, probably worth a play because he ain't going to have anybody taking touches away. Jaden Rashada, kid that started the season, looked pretty good for Arizona State. He's getting first-team reps again after the injury, so that's pretty fun, and it's good for those Arizona State receivers too. So Antoine Wells, we've talked about him every single week. This poor fella. He said he's not going to play this week, but he's returning next season for South Carolina. So, maybe giving him the offseason to kind of rest his body will be good for him. And then he can play like we all know he can play next year. Elijah Arroyo, tight end from Miami, somebody that Brian and I were both super high on this season. Didn't get to play a lot because of injuries, but he's probable to play this week. So See how that goes.
Let me read you his 2023 stats. All right, you can go ahead and continue.
Boom. There they are.
0.
You got Dylan Johnson, running back for Washington. This is kind of a weird one. He's in a walking boot right now, but they're hopeful that he's going to play. So they might just be taking it easy. I think he got stepped on or something, Then you got Mikey Keene, quarterback for Fresno, ready to go. Hudson Card, quarterback for Purdue, should be available. Ladd McConkey, wide receiver from Georgia. This note should confuse you like it did me. Should return from ankle injury, but said it was not said if it will be this week or not. So he'll be able to return, but who knows when. So, yeah.
For the Bama game.
Close eye on that. And then you got Logan Diggs, running back for LSU, probable to play. Arkansas running backs right now are kind of like Illinois. Rashad Dubinion and Rocket Sanders both had season-ending surgeries this past week. So,
think Rocket's coming back next year now?
I haven't seen if he is or not, but if he is, good for me. You got Dylan Gabriel, quarterback for Oklahoma, took that hit the ground pretty hard, hurt his head. They're optimistic that he'll be available this week. Tyler Shuck, quarterback for Texas Tech, he's transferring out of Texas Tech.
Yep.
So that could be a fun one to watch to see where he goes. Then you got Cam Rising, quarterback at Utah, announced he will return next season. And
seeing as how he didn't play at all this year, I mean, yeah, why not?
We've already mentioned it,
you're on.
and it's one that I'm going to mention again because it's so fun with so much on the line. We all know Graham Mertz and Jordan Travis both out for the rest of the year. Travis's college career is over.
So sad.
And he was a Heisman hopeful too. He was on the list, and just sucks for him. We got the battle of the backups with Rodemaker and Max Brown, and we'll see what happens there. But I feel bad for both Mertz and Travis because they were actually both having a great year. Mertz was having a better year than I thought he was going to have. So
than everyone thought. Like Napier's not getting the credit deserved for that one, and hopefully that'll happen some more in the offseason. Like the way the offense has performed for Florida has been really good, but how sad is it, man, for Florida State? That's just gut-wrenching to be undefeated and lose your quarterback there and end his career like that. That sucks.
So that kind of wraps it up for the news and notes, y'all. But again, like I always do and try to do, every week, I will keep you posted as the days goes on to what new news comes out. And if you got some championship questions about players, hit me up on Discord and I'll fill you in.
So NC State had another fun thing happen this week too. Their starting running back, their second starting running back of the year, enters the transfer portal. Michael Allen. So you've had Jordan Houston enter the portal. Michael Allen enter the portal. You have MJ Morris decide he's going to play 4 games and then put himself back on red shirt, and they could potentially have a better season than last year. That is crazy. There's also talk that the guy that just decommitted, the big time running back recruit from Michigan State, just decommitted. He's got 50 offers at Michigan, decommitting from Michigan State. They're considering him an NC State lean, so that might be why some of these running backs are getting out of there, because this guy might be going to NC State after decommitting from Michigan State the other day.
Yeah, we're starting to get the little whatever leads up to an earthquake. I'm from Florida. I don't know what goes into
Tremors.
Yeah. There you go. With Dino Babers, another coach, fired. We're going to start seeing this stuff like LaQuint Allen, the talent, perfect size, can block, can catch, all that stuff. Where will he go? Will he go? You have to assume with if he's got NFL aspirations, he's going to go to a big school where he can get some be an RB1 and we'll see how that one kind of plays out. But there's going to be a ton of massive things that happen like that with an impact on fantasy here in the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Doug, BMAC wanted to jump down to the news and notes real quick, and he jumped right over like he hurdled the defensive lineman on the ground, the top standout performances from last week. Why don't you why don't you run us through the top standout performances in fantasy football last week?
All right, so number one, man, this kid has been insane the last couple weeks. Jaden Daniels with 86 fantasy points last week.
Insane.
This kid, like, and it kind of brings me to a real quick side note here, and I wanted to ask you guys, do you see a potential 3 or 4 loss quarterback winning the Heisman again? It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
But if it does, I feel like it should be this year.
Yeah, that could totally be this year, and it could be him. It's right now him, Penix and Nix.
I think those are the 3 that are kind of pulling away with it a little bit.
Totally, yeah. I think Marvin Harrison should be in that discussion. Ohio State would have not won all their games without him.
I think honestly that the Heisman Trophy is Penix's to lose. I think that he is the clear front runner right now, and I think if he performs well at the end of the season, I think Penix is going to win the trophy.
Yeah, it's just going to be crazy because, like I said, potential 3 or 4 loss guy winning it. I could see this being the year that it happens again.
Yeah, from an MVP or whatever kind of perspective, all 3 of those guys, if you take Jaden Daniels off of LSU, if you take Nix or Penix off of their respective teams, they're not going to be where they're at right now. No. But all those teams rely on those. So I'd be happy with any of them. Anyways.
Speaking of Bo Nix, he came in at number 3 with 65 points last week. And then we got our boy Frank Harris at number 2 with 76. Then a surprising one for me, y'all. A team that hasn't really been much of anything. Arkansas State's defense, 63 points. And then Washington State's defense, 57. Garrett Green, quarterback for West Virginia, who's actually played well this year when given the chance. He had 52 points. And then Jaquez Cross, wide receiver for Arkansas State, with 51 points. I mean, they put up 77 points in that game last week. So you would have thought that somebody went off, and it was Mr. Cross with 51 fantasy points. So, like I said, I typically like to stay with my 70 points and above, and that's where I'm at. And I like that picture a lot. It's really good. So.
There he is on Matt's bench.
He's literally looking at his phone saying, why is that dude? Why did he not start me?
Regard me.
All right. So all jokes aside, this is the championship week in college fantasy football. We ask you guys if you wanted to give us your starting lineups. We go and take a look at them. We do have 3 leagues that we can look at this week. We have our home league. We have our open league. And we've also got the MVP League, which was an offshoot of CFB because CFB was so good back in the day. And there's so many people who wanted to join this league. One of our value members, Mike Dillingham, was like, you know what? I got to go create a second league similar to CFB so some of these guys have a chance to get in and be part of this goodness. So we can look at all 3 of those lines. BMAC, why don't you go ahead and bring up the CFB Dynasty home league real quick, and we'll look at the championship game. You got Mike Davis and Gordy Miller. Gordy is the one who so ceremoniously dumped Doug last year for the championship, crushing him in embarrassing fashion. Doug, how many points did he beat you by last year?
I don't remember. Point something.
0.2. Like I said, crushing defeat.
Out of my
Who
memory. You keep bringing it back up, and I'm going to stab you, and it's fine.
Yep. So as a reminder, and I've got it up on the screen here. So we've got Gordy, Arizona State versus Mike Davis. This is for Mike Davis. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise for him that USC and his quarterback Caleb Williams has a bye week because man, they have been struggling. But anyways, he's got Donovan Smith in. I think this will be the first time he starts him at UCF. Against Jaden Daniels at home against Texas A&M, where they're trying to get him the Heisman. That's a really good matchup. And as a reminder, also this league is a dynasty league, college to pro. So there's some weird roster dynamics there where you've got a mix of college players and potential NFL players, whatever. Estime and Irving at running back against Braylon Allen and Quinshon Judkins. One of the fun parts about this week, championship week, is you got games like every single day, starting on Tuesday. Got the Black Friday big games happening all day. And then, of course, Saturday too. So at receiver, Gordy's got Polk coming off a tough game. McConkey, Tyler Brown in for Clemson. And then Matt's this guy that Matt hates, Kevin Conception, on Mike Davis's team, along with Malik Neighbors and Adunze.
Oh, his receivers are so good.
It's because of that. We're not even to the flex and tight ends. It's because of that I'm rolling with Mike Davis. He's so elite and consistent at receiver. I think he'll be good enough at running back and quarterback to compete. However, Jaden Daniels could go off.
And that's single-handedly keep Gordy in this game.
That's the one where
as long as he doesn't use Malik Neighbors.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you, part of the reason why you have to say Gordy has a chance is just because it's Gordy. Gordy is like the ultimate spoiler. He could have a team that is not the better team and still find a way to win. As referenced by last year, I think Doug had a better team than Gordy, and Gordy got the dub. Rutgers, I would have had to have played a perfect lineup last week to beat him, but that dude had like 3 running backs on the bench that scored 23 to 27 points. His team is so deep. You look at who he's got out there. I think with a receiving core like that, Concepcion, Neighbors, and Adunze, it's going to be tough for him to lose. I think the biggest thing is, will Donovan Smith be able to go and put up some huge numbers against UCF? If so, I think he's got that done.
With quick Gordy, pick, who are you betting on? Quick pick, Doug. We'll move along.
Oh, Rutgers for sure.
All right, boom. We'll go to the Open League Championship here. I've got, and this is who deserves to be here, by the way, Saucy Dossie, Oaktown 510. These two guys were consistent and good right from the jump. Good draft.
Common theme. Jaden
Daniels. These two killed it, and they'll be featured in the Masters League in 2024. So as a theme, we got Jaden Daniels in the championship for Saucy Dossie, along with Marquise Irving, just like Gordy, and then Will Shipley. Oaktown's running out Carson Beck with Rasheen Ali and Jaden Ott there. Ott, obviously, we talked about as a really likely to be the premier runner, and it's a late game, which is also fun. I like having like the last shot at the championship, but at UCLA, that's been a tough defense.
Tough defense for sure.
I would have to say easy advantage for Saucy Dossie there for those first ones. And then jump down to receiver. He's got Javon Baker, Jalen Gill, and Sam Pinckney against Oaktown's Kelly Akarayi. Okay.
Yes.
Moving along, Jamari Thrash, LaJonte Wester. And then we've got Fairchild against Velling, and then in the flex, Silas Bolden against Devin Neal. Man, this is a bigger league, so the rosters are not as good as the last one, I don't think. But dang, I might have to roll with Saucy Dossie, although Oaktown's got nobody that's going to be a bust, I don't think. And I think he's got a good shot to have maybe a LaJonte Wester go off again. But Jamari Thrash, man, that's a tough matchup against Kentucky. I'd go quick pick Saucy Dossie. Who do you guys have?
Man, I'm going to go Saucy Dossie, and I would especially go Saucy Dossie, and this might be a stretch for some, but changing out Silas Bolden and putting in on his bench Johnny Wilson against Florida's secondary instead.
I think I'm going to go with Oaktown just because Oaktown has been the consistent number one scoring team in the league. I do think it's crazy he's running with Jacksonville State as his defense in this game, but if he wins with Jacksonville State, that's probably going to be the first championship ever for Jacksonville State or a Jacksonville State player. I got to go with Oaktown. Oaktown's been number one all year. It's good if you're the number one team to get that dub.
And then in the other league that was sent in, we've got what was this one called again? MVP.
This is
All right.
MVP.
So yet again, Jaden Daniels in the championship. So it's hard to lose when you had Jaden Daniels, and that's extremely important as you look at like who the top players were. You know, you're looking for consistency and of course points. But dang,
that one could
he's
be
been
a
healthy all year.
even swap though. Milroe against Auburn's defense, who Milroe's been
At Auburn, weird things happen. I would not say that out loud.
I just did.
Give me Jaden Daniels at home. Huge advantage over Milroe. And we'll look at that when we get to the rankings portion. So, yeah, we've got Northwest Southeast U has Jaden Daniels, Jermaine Brown, Blake Corum against Top Gun with Milroe, Travion Henderson at Michigan, and Jawar Jordan against Kentucky.
Travion at Michigan.
Huge advantage to Northwest Southeast U there. And then at receiver, Macklin, Adunze, Dante Wright against Luke McCaffrey, Xavier Legette, Marvin Harrison. Again, tough matchup there at Michigan for Ohio State. We'll see how that one plays out. Overall, okay, and there's Kamani Vidal at Southern Miss against Conception in the flex position. I like Northwest Southeast U as my pick. Who are y'all's quick picks there?
I think Northwest Southeast has probably got the advantage there, but Mike Dillingham, who's the longtime founding member in our league as well, is Top Gun, and Mike always finds a way to get that dub at the end. But I think Northwest Southeast is just too strong, especially all these teams. If Jaden Daniels has a week like last week, I think they all take the dub, every single one of them. But if he doesn't, then I think the door's open.
Rolling with Top Gun, I'm going to be the odd man out in this one. I think there's no defense out there that can stop Marvin Harrison, even Michigan. So it's fine.
I will say, you got Middle Tennessee playing against Sam Houston. Sam Houston looked like they were going to beat, was it Western Kentucky last week? Sam Houston's playing some ball, so that could be an interesting decision playing Middle Tennessee defense against Sam Houston, who's actually playing some really good football right now. Anyways, that is our roundup of the of some lineups for championship week. If you want some other commentary about it, make sure you throw it up in the Discord. And I'm sure Doug, who is manning that thing, I'm getting private messages all the time from all of his followers and his fan base and his stalkers out there. He'll get you some information back.
Keep it real, my brothers. Keep it real.
We've got one here before we get to rankings and whatnot. So Danny Hall, just wanted to say thanks for all the help this year. One final question. Need two from my flex spot. So we've got not ad block. We've got Ashlock versus Colorado State.
Ad block.
Will Shipley against South Carolina, Cephas against Tulane, McMillan versus Arizona State. Two of those guys. Who are you guys picking here? I'm going
Shipley.
Yeah.
And then, man, McMillan for Arizona has, definitely surpassed Cowing as the guy. He's big. He's strong. I'm going to go Shipley and McMillan. Probably on this list.
Let's see.
I'm going Shipley and Cephas. The only way that I would switch and even think about putting Ashlock in is if he's playing at home. If Hawaii's playing at home, he's got decent numbers. If Hawaii's playing on the road, he's pretty dreadful. Not because he's bad, just the Hawaii offense doesn't play well on the road. But I think Shipley and Cephas is the matchup.
Arizona is projected to score 31. Rivalry game on the road at Arizona State. You got to talk about weather a little bit here, so that one's going to be fine. UTSA at Tulane. They're projected to score 24. So while both defenses are bad against the pass, favor McMillan. I'm rolling with McMillan and Shipley.
You heard it here first, Danny Hall.
Danny Hall, don't listen to them. You got to take Cephas. says the guy who had a 70-point swing on his quarterbacks last week.
Oh,
I don't have that picture up, but
Remember, though, I've had 3 weeks to think about lineups, Danny.
Danny Hall, seriously, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. We appreciate every single person that comments, that watches, that helps to build this thing up. Help us spread the word so that this can be bigger and better for each and every one of you. So where do we go next, B-Mac? Do you want to talk about the DraftKings host battle? See where we're at there?
We'll get to that real quick. Let's go through rankings.
Oh, yeah.
Top teams.
Oh, yeah.
See, I was testing you.
Yeah, it was a good test. That was valid. So here we go. We'll start off with quarterbacks. You think about Texas A&M, the talent they have. They don't have a coach, but
could be better for them.
LSU still projected to score 38.5 this week at home against Texas A&M. That is insane. But I wouldn't start anyone over Jaden Daniels. You got Salter. It's another great start. He's been super consistent. Look at his last 3 games, 47, 47, 44. But Bo Nix, consistent and better, 56, 54, 65. And then Jaden Daniels, 45, 78, 86. Absolutely ridiculous. But after those top 3, though, the rest of the defenses versus the pass are terrible for the rest of the top 10. So you've got, Byron Brown against UNCC, but then you've got John Reese Plumlee, which we'll talk about in the DFS host battle for sure, against the 116th defense. Aguilar against the 94th best defense against the pass. Hennigan against the 104th, blah, 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 blah. So there's some great matchups at the top. So you obviously want to be starting one of those guys if you're going up against someone. But I'll give you an example. Let's go with a question. Let's go with Preston Stone against Navy and all the things that Navy presents in, if they are able to run successfully, your offense is not going to be on the field with Preston Stone that much. But regardless, SMU is projected to score 32. Or would you go with Milroe for Alabama, who's been on a tear? He was the last 3 games, 51, 53, 28. Although it's at Auburn, where weird things happen, like losing to New Mexico State. But
I was going to say
they play Alabama.
Yeah, I was going to say, come on there, buddy.
I mean, this one to me, this is like if anybody answers not Milroe, I would question their sanity. I mean, Auburn just got beat by New Mexico. Milroe is going to come in and he's going to feast on Auburn. I know it's a rivalry game, but I think Milroe is going to crush in that game. I think the point you made, B-Mac, about Preston Stone playing against a clock-eating Navy is going to really have a chance to curtail his stat line just because they're going to eat the clock up.
Yeah, Milroe's been on a tear. That would be a tough one for me. Data leans slightly in favor of Preston Stone there. All right, we can move along. Running backs here. This is where, when we're picking, if you had to pick, Matt, who would be the RB1? That's definitive, right? In terms of points, it's Ollie Gordon right now with 284 fantasy points. RB2 though, Omarion Hampton, but RB1 when he's healthy in terms of fantasy points per game is Genty.
Yes. I absolutely.
If you had to sit one of those 3 this week, who are you going to sit?
If I had to sit one of those 3, okay. So to me, Ollie Gordon is the definite. You're going to play him. I think Genty and Omarion Hampton. That's a tough one because I think there's a case to sit either one of them. Genty because of Air Force, kind of like with Navy. Air Force is a clock-eating team. Man, I think I would probably sit Hampton because I feel like the best defense out of those 3 is NC State's. So Man, but that's tough. That's tough. I would love to have the problem of having those three guys flip a coin and you're good to go. What about you, Doug?
Sitting Hampton, Genty, or Gordon. I'm sitting Genty all day.
Just because you're a Halani owner, come on over there, man. Why would you sit?
Because Halani has outperformed Genty even last week. So
he was coming off an injury.
Hey,
he was coming back. Come on, man.
Halani, I think, is making a statement to possibly go in the draft. And Genty, I think they're going to potentially try to keep him another year. So why would you try to crush this guy when you're really not playing for anything special anyways? So, and I am a Halani fan, and I would sit the guy that, I think has competition for touches. It just, to me, it makes sense.
Can I give a shout out to someone we haven't talked about enough? Is just Cody Schrader and what he's done.
I was going to say, can I start Schrader over all three of these guys?
Walk on, like Missouri, just killing it. Like Missouri is a really solid team, and Schrader's been so consistent and just a tough runner, zone blocking scheme, one cut kind of guy. Like, and he hits the hole hard. Like he's been great. When we do the pod where we go over all of our like top players from the previous year, looking at preseason rankings, all that stuff, seeing how we did, seeing what we learned, that's all going to be good to go. All right. Gordy's putting
Gordy's going to do it. Here we go. One at a time. Here it comes.
All right. So wide receivers got Neighbors and Adunze. That's why I picked Mike Davis to win, because he did a great job picking both of those guys up. I think he drafted Neighbors this past draft. He got Adunze as a freshman or sophomore off the waiver wire. And, he did a great job acquiring those two, obviously. Got Corley up there as a great start this week for Western Kentucky. Jalen Royals has really taken off in that Utah State offense. Colin Lacey hasn't had a touchdown in a while. It's part of why I am out of the playoffs. But he's been consistent. He gets, 10 plus targets a game. Yet another great matchup for the fantasy playoffs. And Luther Burden at 8, someone you really can't sit. Torrey Horton, another one, not a touchdown in a while up until last week. But I was already out. And then he's playing against Hawaii. Anyways, if you've got LeJontay Wester, who's had 56 points within the last 2 weeks, or a Jalen Royals or a Colin Lacey, which one of those two guys would you sit? Or those three, sorry.
I would sit Lacey just because, like you said, Lacey he's still a big part of that offense, but they have so many weapons at South Alabama, and I can't believe that that's actually a phrase that just came out of my mouth. But South Alabama has got a ton of really good weapons on that offense, and their other receiver is getting just as many targets as Lacey over the past few weeks. So I think Lacey, if I had to sit one of them, is probably going to be the guy that I sit only because of that.
So this is the last you'll see of our rankings. I don't think we're going to do a bowl rankings. It's possible we can be persuaded to do that. I've got an email to respond to on that one, actually. But I think the next thing you'll see will be our 2024 early rankings. We'll have plenty of Devi updates in the new year.
We may even do a bowl predictions too.
Yeah, I think we're going to do a bowl predictions. We talked about it before the show, before our 5 attempts to get this one running today. My bad. Thinking about doing a bowl pick 'em, and maybe you guys that are out there in the CFB Open or MVP or CFB Home, if you guys want to be a part of that, we'll put something together. And if you don't want to be a part of it, then maybe the three of us will just do it and just say bump all you guys, and we'll just do it ourselves.
Yeah, we'll probably have our 2 early version like over Christmas break, which will be before recruiting's done, which will be before the portal, opens and closes again in the spring. So It'll be interesting, but and there will be more changes to come. But at least our early rankings, after most of the people have declared and all that stuff, but not all of them will have by that point. So plenty of changes, and it'll be interesting, to say the least, with all the changes that we expect to happen. But yet again, a lot of changes at the top of the college fantasy football sphere, being seniors. So you got, Penix will be gone, Gabriel, Nix, Daniels. So anyways, that being said, yeah, Matt, we can move along to our host battle. Here comes the drop.
DFS Host Battle.
All right, so DFS Host Battle. So last week looked like Doug was going to run away with it for the 6th week in a row, or 6th
No,
week.
it looked like I was going to run away with it.
Looked like you were. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's right. You're right.
I was the low scorer last week, guys.
Well, looked like somebody who is not me was going to run away with that. I'm like, oh, they got it. I move away for like 30 minutes from it. I go back and check, and somehow I got like 80 points in that span of time. I ended up getting the dub. So Doug has got 5 wins this year. I have got 4. B-Mac with 2. How can you justify that? How can you justify that as the leader of CFB Dynasty that you only have 2 this year?
I can't justify it. It's just unacceptable.
I accept it for you.
Monetarily.
So B-Mac, Doug, you guys go first this time. We'll keep up with the tradition of the guy who wins the previous week will be the last one to put their lineup up there.
I'll go ahead and hit it up first. So,
all right.
For QB, I got Milton against Vandy, 7,500. Then I got Harvey for UCF at running back against Houston, 7,200. Then I got Robbins from BYU against OK State, 4,100. Then I got Evan Stewart, Texas A&M against LSU, because I think they're going to have to try to score to keep up with them, 5,900. Then I got Vele, Utah receiver against Colorado, 5,000. Then I got Squirrel White, Tennessee.
Hey, Squirrel.
Against Vandy. There it is. God, I love that sound. 5,700. Then I went with Johnny Richardson, UCF against Houston, 3,900. Wanted somebody cheap, and I think UCF is potentially supposed to score a lot. So
Yes,
they are. And then my super flex is Penix Jr. against Washington State.
Man.
All right.
I can tell you, I don't understand how you guys are always able to get a high-priced quarterback into your super flex. Every week I'm like, man, I'm cutting, and I've got like $4,100 left. B-Mac, who do you got this week in the DFS host battle?
So give me Plumlee against Houston.
I was
82.
torn.
Yeah.
So torn.
It was basically like him or Harvey. I couldn't get them both.
Yeah.
And I went with Plumlee. And whoever gets those goal line at red zone touches will be the one that is the winner. So I'm hoping that's a shootout, and it's expected to be. That's why we put out the shootouts of the week every week. And give me anybody against Colorado, and in this case, Jaquin Jackson, 5,300. Scatabo at home against Arizona.
Dude, that dude was taking snaps at quarterback last week, boy.
Give me some of them. $5,700. Then I've got Javon Baker to stack with Plumlee at 6,000. I've got Barry and Brown, who scores like every 4 games or so. So this is his 4th game at 4,800.
He's due.
And Evan Stewart, give me anybody against LSU against the pass that A&M's going to be behind passing the whole game. Evan Stewart, 5,900. I almost went with Anaya Smith in there as well, but I went with Manjack in the flex and Donovan Smith at 8,200 as the other quarterback. So I've got a double stack there. Donovan Smith to Manjack, Plumlee to Baker. Who you got, Matt?
All right, so I got Jalen Milroe at quarterback for he's 9,500. Then I've got Travion Henderson at running back at 7,300. I felt like that was really low for him. That was a good value. Then I've got Isaac Garendo from Louisville, who is only a $6,300 running back play, but he's been averaging mid-teens. I needed to save a little money there. Obviously, my boy Manjack the fourth was only 5,900, so that was a good value to try and save some money. Then I've got Brennan Presley from Oklahoma State. He was a $5,900 play. Last week he had 15 receptions for 189 yards, 36.7 fantasy points. Felt like that was a good value there. I got Loveland from Michigan, the tight end. He's not putting up great numbers, but I needed to save money at 4,700. I've got Emeka Egbuka as my flex, 6,300. And then in my super flex, I've got Aiden Roberts from BYU, $4,100 play, who had 21 points last week, 182 yards. So I felt like that was going to be worth it. So we'll see if I can tie up Doug this week and get my 5th championship, or if BMAC can stay in last place and get his 3rd.
Yeah, let's do that. All right, I'll move us along. Play the drop. Here we go.
It's time for the brisket lock.
All right, so picking up the pace here a little bit. If you guys don't care, I'm going to go over our brisket locks from last week and how they did, and then we'll hit the ones from this week. So for me, I went with Josh Kelly, who 10 targets, 6 receptions, 130 yards. Crushed me because he didn't have a touchdown. But other than that, he played really well. And then Matt went with one of his boys, one of his homies, Omarion Hampton, running back at UNC, who had a great day. 19 attempts, 178, 2 touchdowns. The 2 fumbles would have given him another 4, 5, 6 points, depending on what your league you're in. So
it would have given him a lot more than that, because one of them was a 75-yard touchdown that he got hit from behind at the 1-foot line. So it became a 74-yard run with a fumble out the side of the end zone instead of a 75-yard touchdown, which was a huge points difference for me on that one play.
That's crushing for sure, because that would have been, 8 points there? Different 9?
Yep.
So
and that was a risky start too. That's why it's a good brisket lock, because they were playing at Clemson, right?
Yep. Yeah, we had him. I think he was in the 30s as far as our weekly rankings was last. That's why the only reason why Omarion Hampton would even be a brisket lock, because he's got the high stats, but he has had a bad defensive matchup for sure.
Yep.
And then BMAC with Marquez Cooper, ball against Kent, 25 attempts, 140 and a TD.
Yep. Against his old team.
I mean, man, the brisket locks were pretty solid last week. Like I said, barring, Josh Kelly not getting a touchdown, we were pretty solid on our brisket locks. So I'm happy about that.
Well, mine this week, I'm going for someone who is going to go for 225 yards.
Oh,
and 2 to 3 touchdowns. Harrison Whaley for Wyoming against Nevada. Who you got, Doug?
Man, I'm rolling with
ridiculous, by the way,
with this game, because I like this a lot. And I've watched a lot of FSU play this year. I'm going Max Brown from UF. I'm gonna say he's probably gonna have at least 225 yards passing and probably between 80 and 90 yards rushing against.
Oh my goodness! I'll be your bookie this week.
That's what I'm rolling with. Because I've seen FSU struggle so much against quarterbacks that are dual threat.
Well, I got a note this week. I got a message saying that I'm uninvited to Thanksgiving dinner. So to try and get back in his good graces, because we have him so far down 35th in the rankings, I put Frank Harris in as my brisket lock, trying to get back in his good graces. I mean, he's only like 3-4 years younger than me, still playing college football. 1 week late. Last week had a 76-point performance. Do I think he's going to do that this week? I do not. But Frank Harris is showing that he is completely rounding into form at the end of the season, and I don't think you're gonna miss if you play him.
There he is.
Hey Frank, what's going on, man?
There's you talking to him on the bench, trying to get re-invited.
Yep, trying to get that turkey, boy.
Dang. Nah, because I'm the turkey. I'm the turkey that didn't play Frank Harris last week. That's what I'm talking about.
Gobble, gobble, son.
All right, so it looks like we've hit exactly the 1 hour mark for this podcast, which means it's time for us to get the heck out of here and let everybody get back to their day. So next week, BMAC, do you think that we're going to try to get the I guess we can't do it next week, but the bowl, I guess a couple weeks from now is when we'll be talking about the bowls. Next week, what do you think we'll be talking about?
Yeah, we will figure that one out on the fly. I'm super stoked for off-season mode, player acquisition time, and all that stuff. So TBD, but we'll have some fun with it and getting ready for 2024 everything.
Sounds good to me. All right, everybody. On behalf of myself, Brian McElfresh, and Doug Gravely, this has been the CFBDynasty.com podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the CFB Dynasty podcast. Help us out by subscribing on YouTube and reviewing us on your podcast network.